it is that time of year again. Winter is upon us, at least in the northern hemisphere. I don't know about you, but where I live, here in the western United States, the winter has sure started slow this year. But now that we're in January, it looks to be picking up with a lot of snow incoming. So I figured that this makes for the perfect time to talk about winter images and some photography tips to help you guys to level up your landscape photos this winter. If you're new here, I'm Austin James Jackson, professional landscape photographer based here in the beautiful southern Utah. And before we get into today's video, I wanted to make sure to say thank you to our sponsor of today's video, ProPrints. If you guys are ever looking to get some really high quality yet affordable prints of your own work, I think ProPrints is a fantastic place to go and they've got you covered. I'm going to include a link to their site down below. So as you might be able to tell, I'm pretty bundled up and prepared for the weather. For this video, you can also maybe tell that I'm out in Bryce Canyon National Park and it sure gets cold here. Now, tomorrow morning, we're expecting to have a solid temperature of 1 degree Fahrenheit, which brings me perfectly to the first tip, which is to dress warm. Now, this might sound super obvious, but you should think differently in the winter when you're going out for photography as opposed to just hiking. Oftentimes, you may need to wait on location for the best light, like tonight. So if you aren't bundled up, then you're gonna get cold really easily. If you get cold and leave too early, you might miss the chance at capturing those epic conditions. Tip number 2 is really important if you want to capture the best shots, and that is to go out to shoot just after it snows. Preferably you go out just after a decent amount of snow. Ideally, it's at least a couple of inches. The best winter photos come when there's still snow in the trees, snow on your subject, and snow covering the ground, and all the snow is still soft and fluffy on the ground. If it hasn't snowed for a few days, the snow tends to make its way out of the trees onto the ground, and then the snow on the ground usually doesn't quite look as pristine. Now, while it might not always be possible, the absolute best case scenario, in my opinion, is to photograph in the early morning after a huge dumping of snow overnight. I've gotten really lucky up here in the last couple years to capture some awesome images after it snowed over a foot overnight, and the results were just fantastic. Unfortunately, even when it's cold, once the sun starts to hit snow during the daytime, it'll start to melt out and look less than ideal for photography. Speaking of the sun, tip number 3 is all about light. This is just a good photography tip in general, but especially in the winter, you really need to be chasing the light. Sunlight helps to literally light up a scene, making it stand out. If you're shooting early in the morning, just after sunrise, or even late in the evening just before sunset, you can get beautiful warm colored sunlight that's red or orange. It'll make a huge difference in your scene. The difference between having an image with sunlight and having the same image without sunlight is astonishing. It honestly makes a huge difference. If you've got multiple days on location, I recommend scouting the first day to figure out exactly where the sun is going to hit and at what time. That way, when the good snow arrives and the sunlight's there, you'll be ready to fire away images in the right place at the right time. You don't want to be scrambling to find a better spot because you realized that your original subject doesn't receive any sunlight at the particular time that you're out shooting. Now, when it comes to the sun and snow, it can be super easy to overexpose your images. Tip number 4 is to use the zebra mode on your camera, which will help you to properly dial in the exposure. Since the sun's bright, it lights up and reflects off of snow, which is white. Now, a lot of photographers struggle to properly expose the snow since it can be challenging to tell the difference between properly exposed white snow and overexposed white snow. They do look very similar on the back of your camera's LCD screen, but when you get home and put them on the computer, you're going to realize that you've missed out on a lot of detail when you return home. One of the best ways to avoid overexposing is by using your camera's zebra mode. The way you set it up and what it's called might be different on every camera, but if you Google the name of your camera along with zebra mode, I'm sure you'll be able to figure out how to set it up. This mode shows stripes on the back of your camera's screen when using live view, indicating that your image is overexposed or blown out. When you see stripes, you simply just need to adjust your camera settings to properly expose the scene and avoid blown out snow in your images. Now, tip number 5 is a mistake that I know some of you have made if you've shot in the winter before. I know I certainly have, especially if you're shooting with an older camera, I think. So you want to make sure to keep your batteries warm in a chest pocket or a pants pocket that's close to your body, if at all possible. Many camera batteries, especially older ones, like I said, they love to die in the cold and they love to lose their charge. Nothing's worse than having fantastic conditions outside and all of your camera batteries are dead. I like to keep my batteries in an interior chest pocket inside of my jacket to keep them plenty warm. Where you keep them is totally up to you, but this is just a word of warning that if you don't keep your batteries warm, you may very well regret it. Tip number 6 covers how to focus in the snow. Unfortunately, most cameras are going to have a hard time picking up focus on the snow if you don't choose the right spot. For landscape photography in general, I always like using the flexible spot autofocus, which allows me to move the focus point and my scene around. This makes it easy to do things like focus stacking and quickly adjusting my focus point on the fly. If you want to avoid focus stacking, which I totally understand, then you should focus on a high contrast object in the background. This will usually look like your main subject or a tree or a rock or anything else dark that contrasts well with the snow. If you try and focus on a patch of snow, your camera's going to spin in circles forever trying to find focus. Eventually it'll tell you it's in focus and it's not, and then sadly you will have an image that's out of focus. While we're talking about this, it's also worth mentioning to always review the images on the back of your camera. When you find a shot you really like, you should always image review and zoom in to make sure the image is properly exposed and in focus. While there are some softwares out there that can help you if you do miss focus, it is so much easier just to get it right in the field and to make sure your images look good on the back of your camera's LCD screen in the field. Tip number 7 involves photo editing, which is a key piece of winter photography. In the field, I like to use auto white balance, but this oftentimes can result in images that end up too cool or too warm. You should be adjusting the white balance in post-processing to neutralize the color of the snow. Even if you had a great sunset or sunrise with lots of warm color flooding into the landscape, the snow should be neutral toned in the shadows. Find a spot of snow that isn't receiving any reflected light from the landscape and do absolutely everything you can to make this snow neutral colored or slightly cool if you want. Snow that's too warm looks unrealistic and you should avoid it absolutely at all costs. There you have it, my 7 winter photography tips that'll hopefully help you guys to take better photos this winter. If you guys have any recommendations of your own or any questions about any of my 7 tips, please let me know down below in the comments. If this video was helpful for you guys, please make sure to leave a like and subscribe to my channel. I post weekly videos where I do my best to give you guys photography tips, tutorials, gear reviews, all that good stuff in order to help you guys hopefully become better photographers. I know that this channel would have helped me when I was starting out in my photography journey. And so it is my goal to just regurgitate as much information as I possibly can that I've learned and improved on my own images to give to you guys. So make sure to subscribe if you guys want weekly videos where you can improve your landscape photography. Thank you so much for watching this video. See you guys next time.